Well, what a peaceful beginning to the day I had this morning. Very, very welcome. I mean, I did almost step in cat vomit in the laundry.
Disgusting.
Had to also wrangle our third born out of bed in order for him to get to school on time, which this morning involved spraying water on the soles of his feet.
I sprayed water on the cat. That's it probably vomited before that though.
Oh, right. But compared to a few mornings recently, those small little interruptions were not bad at all. Yesterday morning, our charming little daughter, love her to bits, little birdie, she's discovered that to get a big response out of mum in the morning, some technology needs to be destroyed. So yesterday morning she threw down the electronic photo frame that you kindly gave me for my birthday. So that was a bit upsetting, but it survived, thank goodness. Last week our TV did not survive. So when she grabbed that from the top and flung it down onto the hard white tiles in our living room, it was a resounding smash and it has not survived at all. And then one morning a couple of weeks ago, she decided to pour 2 hot cups of tea all over her new iPad. So we've had some disasters in the morning, but look, this morning, cat vomit, trying to get up a teenager early in the morning when it's not their natural rhythm. I mean, those things are just lightweight compared to the technology wholesale smash that's been going on lately. So, yeah, no complaints today.
We've done pretty well with only needing to replace 2 TVs. One, because it died of natural causes, and that survived 4 young children in a 2-bedroom unit.
Yeah, it actually did very well.
So that did all right until it just, I don't know what happened. And then this one has been, the replacement TV has been pushed over that many times.
Yep.
Probably in excess of 20 times, easily,
Yes.
probably closer to 50.
Yep.
And always backwards, and it kind of would get wedged between the TV unit and the walls. But we've moved everything around, so now she can't really push it backwards. Doesn't really give much satisfaction. It rocks a little bit. So she pulled it forward. That's it.
That's it, and it's dead.
TV onto the tiles.
Yep.
It's all over.
It's
So
all over, Red Rover.
Anyway,
So the moral of the story is
don't have kids.
don't leave them unattended for even half a minute while you go upstairs to get your shoes. That's been my downfall the last couple of times.
Well, if we get another TV, it will be firmly affixed to the wall.
Indeed.
And
it's just the rest of the phones, laptops and so on that aren't safe. So still don't go get your shoes.
Got to lock the studio door. Welcome to Pain in the Arts, the podcast where the pursuit of meaningful art meets the unpredictable demands of real life.
I am Brea Allen.
And I'm Lyndon. And we have decided, in our wisdom, to bring a topic to bear that the other person doesn't know about.
Mystery bag topic.
Each week, this is the plan at the moment anyway, each week we'll take it in turns, bringing a topic to the table.
Whose turn this time?
And the other person won't know what it is. This week it is my turn. And are you ready for it?
I am. I am waiting with bated breath.
You are not. The theme is thinking about the work is not doing the work.
Thinking about the work is not doing the work.
So I've been following a guy called Brad Stulberg. He's an author. His latest book is called Master of Change. We should get him on the podcast. I wonder if that would ever happen.
That would be great. I just love that you said, I'm following an author. I mean, the number of books over the years I've said, you should read this. And now look at you, bringing books to me that I have not read.
Well, yes, he's a podcaster. I guess he's probably a motivational speaker. Who knows? But yeah, he's known for his work on sustainable performance, mental health and personal development. It's probably like a holistic approach, and he's not into that sort of life hack kind of stuff that's going around.
Yeah,
anyway.
yeah. So many of the things that come up on Instagram or podcasts even sometimes. It's all about getting some quick win, whereas I think what we're more interested in is definitely that more sustainable approach, the slow movement, the movement of what makes life more meaningful and how can we bolster and support our own creative practices over the long term so that we're more satisfied with doing them.
So he put this quote up on Instagram, thinking about the work is not doing the work, and that resonated with me because I've spent decades thinking about the work. I mean, and I've been doing the work as well, but like there's definitely been much longer periods of me not doing. We can talk a bit later about what the work is, but yeah, it's an ongoing struggle for me, definitely, and yeah, always has been internal thoughts and external actions and how it affects my creativity. Yeah, it's definitely a big issue for me and something that I've recognised more recently. I mean, time can just pass so quickly as well, you know, and the imbalance of how much thinking I've done compared to the work that I've wanted to do. It's a glaring imbalance.
Yep.
I guess today I've brought the topic forward because the more I've thought about it, the more I've realised that there's been some answers in things that I've been reading lately as well. So it has been something that's been on my mind. So yeah, I'll get into some of those things that I've found have worked for me to be able to just basically put the thoughts into actions sooner. Is probably really what it's been about for me.
Yep.
I'm definitely an overthinker.
Yep.
And it really has been an Achilles heel of mine. Not so much the overthinking, but falling into that trap of thinking for so long about something, right? You know what I mean? Like there's a difference between overthinking something and then just thinking on something, the same thing over and over again, whether you want to call it rumination or, but yeah, at some point you have to do the work. At some point I have to do the work and get that balance back.
Because I think there is some thought about the work that is really helpful and like you're kind of pulling together threads in your mind of like what you want to include in the work, what it means, what direction it's going to take, what it's about essentially. So thinking about it is part of doing it in some respects, but I think where we need to make that distinction is that without the action and without it culminating in some kind of result, in some sort of substance of work, then it is just thinking about the work. It never gets to doing the work. And for that thought process to become part of the whole of the work rather than a separate just thinking.
Right, yeah. Yeah, and it would probably be scary too if I was played back a tape of my thoughts.
That would be horrendous.
But like my thoughts of, you know, what was going through my head on any given day about the project or about the work that I ultimately wanted to be doing. Like I think it would just be maybe the same half a dozen thoughts over and over again, like for weeks or months and the weird thing is too, the times where I am sitting down creating things, it's like it's probably the most enjoyable thing to do.
Yeah.
So it's kind of bewildering that all the thoughts you're having that I would think were motivating me and were designed to empower me so that when the time came for me to work, that I would just be raring to go because I love it. But instead, it results in just being overwhelmed or getting stuck in the gear or the processes or like it can just not happen. So yeah, it is an odd one that you want to do something so badly and your thoughts essentially are preventing you from doing it. I mean, it's rubbish really, isn't it? What a stupid existence. Why do we do this to ourselves? But yeah, so that's the thing. I wish I could say, oh, this is a new thing that's been happening to me. I seem to be thinking about it more than doing it. So I'm just going to go do it. It's like, no, this has been the way that I have unintentionally been operating for decades, really.
Yeah. Yeah. I think.
Can I go? I'm just going to go and have a little cry now.
Well, I mean, as you said, you have been doing the work along this timeline. It's not like you've never done any work, but I think what we tend to come up against is feeling like the work that we're kind of hanging out to do, that we might be thinking about a lot and not getting around to doing. It's sort of these projects that are just for us, or just that we're creating in our heads, that it's not like we've been commissioned by a client or anything like that. It's just things that we would like to create. It's like this kind of purely creative pursuit, top tier for us, of like what we want to do. No, there's no boundaries, there's no nothing. We can just do whatever we want, but trying to get to that work, that's quite difficult, because obviously we are doing lots of creative work all the time and producing work all the time. It just might be, things that we're doing for clients, or that are our job to do, and so on. And even things within our just daily lives. We're putting creative thought into a lot of things that we do, and we're producing lots of things and we're doing lots of stuff. It's just feeling like that there's these projects or these things that are yet to be created that are existing somewhere in our thoughts and our souls that haven't yet come into being.
Well, where creative or creativity is concerned, let's say, what would you think is your greatest commodity? I was going to say asset, but say commodity.
Where creativity is concerned, what's my greatest commodity? I'd have to say time. Because, well, because the time is it's the only, like, you've got to work in the moments that you have. Yeah. Why?
I was listening to Jerry Seinfeld in an interview this week, and when he put that question, his answer was energy.
Oh, energy.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good thought too. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and I can understand that maybe more now than I would have 20 years ago. Jerry Seinfeld, I think, is 70.
70 already?
I think he's 70.
No way.
I'm in my mid to late 30s, whatever.
I think you'll find you're a tad older than that now, honey.
But it's true. The older you get, the more you realise that energy it's everything, really, isn't it? And energy is something that you don't even really need to think about when you're younger.
Yeah, I guess so.
You don't kind of run out of energy. You get a bit tired, and then you have a sleep. You go again the next day. Like, you're never really thinking about.
You don't think of it as a quantifier, like as a limited resource, let's say, because you seem to have, like, yeah. Although I do remember being so tired for so long, being younger.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that blows Jerry Seinfeld's theory out of the water, doesn't it? There is truth in it, isn't there, that without energy you can't achieve the things that you want to achieve. And it's not just an age thing, you're right. It's not just about finding the time either. You need to be able to have the motivation and the energy to do it in the time that you have. Yeah. I guess.
And to kind of summon all those resources together to sort of spearhead it into action on this work.
Yeah, so the last thing that you need is your own internal self-talk or negative thoughts or whatever manifesting in your head to sort of to stop you from or to deplete you of that energy.
Yeah.
But more than that, I guess what I'm talking about is the thinking aspect of that, or the internal aspect of that. In this instance, isn't even a negative thought or any negative thoughts.
Yeah.
It can be just the fact that you're thinking about how you're going to get it done and when you're going to get it done and how and who else you'll get involved in it, and all of that's fine. It's just like at some point you have to do the work. So what is going to get you to do the work to actually start being productive? What's going to get you to that place sooner? And in a way, it's better to look at it that way than to go, oh, what's stopping me?
Yeah.
Having said that, I have identified a few things that are stopping me.
All right, what's stopping you?
Well, I'll get to those a little bit later. So Brad Stulberg talks about, like when you're talking about the work. Yeah, so he labels it meaningful pursuits.
Meaningful pursuits.
Yeah, meaningful pursuits.
Yeah.
So that can mean different things to different people. We're talking about the work. Obviously, we've got other work that we do. But yeah, so meaningful pursuits. And yeah, as far as the time, like, I mean, I'm no expert on time management, as we will establish as time goes on. But what I do know is that I know what works for me. I might ignore that a lot of the time, or I might not be able to actually create at that time. But what works for me would be different to what works for you.
Yes.
Okay, so according to research, most creative people hate working in the afternoon. Like it's not a good time.
Right. Yep.
And in light of what I said earlier, that is
interesting.
True for me.
Yep.
And I think, you know how I was saying that when that neurologist said to me, one of the things you'll need to do is move about the world more slowly. And then like as years have gone on, I'm like, that's A, good advice. B, it's advice that a lot of people are being given these days as a antidote to anxiety and other things, mental health conditions. But what I've also worked out is, that's good for someone like me. It's good for my type.
Yep.
So maybe also I've been fighting this when I've tried to be creative in the afternoon. I'm trying to be productive and I'm trying to, do things largely because that was the only time I had.
Yeah, that's right.
It actually was.
After doing the coffee van all morning, you had to literally get in there in the afternoon. This was tired, spent for the day, and then go right now.
I was up for it, but I was up for it and really super enthusiastic to be there. That can be true, and it could also be true that I was working against the natural inclinations or rhythms of my body.
Yes,
I'm literally only thinking about this now.
Yep.
Because I know that I work better in the morning or night.
Yeah,
I like getting up earlier. It's not always possible for me, but I do like it. I also know that being a musician and a performer and doing it for a long time, night is great.
Yeah.
Night is really good.
Yep.
Afternoon, awful. Like when I think back on things, I've never really. So anyway, so that seems to be a common thread for artistic people, writers.
I know I've had a chat with a video producer who works in the office next to me, and we've talked about how nothing good happens after lunch. And he had to make the change from sort of doing admin-y stuff in the morning because he was trying to be all organised, and then he'd be trying to get the video stuff done in the afternoon, and he had to switch those things around because he just said, why can't I work? I said, nothing good happens after lunch. But here's a question, and this is something that I've found does work for me to make them make the most of the time and make more of the day is if I can begin the creative work in the morning, and I'm definitely big for like get up and as soon as you can get into the work, get into the work. If I can begin my work earlier in the day, I can extend that time to sort of after lunch and to that afternoon period because I've got the momentum going. So is that something that you find also, or is it once the afternoon rolls around, is the mojo just gone and it's all over?
Yeah, well, there's too many. Yeah, I don't really find that so much. What I find is, if I get started on stuff early, I have a greater sense of satisfaction. I mean, there was that meme that you sent the other day. What was it? Was it a dog sitting down very happily?
I think in a dressing gown.
In a dressing gown. Was it smoking a cigarette or having a juice pack or sucking on a milkshake? I don't know, but it was very comfortable. And the caption said, "Me after completing one task off my to-do list." So it's a bit like that. If you can get a win early, it does make things flow a bit easier. But in terms of creativity and for me musically, I nearly need to just sort of, and anything after 2, like between 2 and 6, I need to just kind of go, it's just not happening.
Not happening.
It's not the best use of my time. So then if I'm like, okay, well, I'll get back in the studio after dinner. Well, it's fine if I've got someone here. But if it's just to work on my own thing, it's probably not going to happen.
Yeah, I don't schedule any work in the night anymore. I used to, even getting assignments done or work done, I would kind of go, yeah, once the kids are in bed, I'll get some done. But no, I'm just too tired now. And maybe that's what you were talking about before with energy. Yeah, I don't find that my energy can extend well from the morning all to late at night. And then obviously I'm getting up in the night a lot of the time as well to attend to our daughter. So yeah, I can't do it after dinner. It's like the most I can do is tidy the kitchen and that's it. So there's nothing creative happening for me at night.
Yeah, well, this idea about thinking about the work is not doing the work is the internal versus the external. That's a way that I've thought about it as well, where you have to have a balance. So we know everything in life is a balance, and this is just another example of it. There's nothing wrong about thinking about the work, obviously, but if it's too one-sided, you know, if you've been thinking about it for way longer than actually doing it, nothing replaces doing it.
Yeah.
It's a bit like, remember the bands that I've been in, bands like when I was younger, and like we would rehearse more than we'd actually gig.
Yeah, right. Yep.
You know, it's like that's an imbalance as well.
Yep.
So yeah, internal versus external, because yeah, if you're thinking about it, that's all internal, where you need to actually get things out through your hands. And so yeah, there's some interesting things that I've discovered block that from happening. But just on this idea of internal versus external, it's a device used in songwriting. So a lot of great songs have that balance between internal and external. There's a word for it. Do you know what it is?
No.
I should have looked it up. I can't remember.
Are you making up a new word
Yeah.
for the Devil's Dictionary?
It's all right, I'll edit this out. It's escaped me, but it doesn't really matter. But yeah, so some of the best songs manage to combine the internal thoughts and emotions with external observations or places or things that listeners can relate to.
Yep.
It's like one of these sort of tools of songwriting. If you've got too much of one and not enough of the other, then when you're doing your rewrite, that's something that you can look at.
Yeah.
If you're in that position. So it's a quick way to sort of get there. I mean, in a song, you've only got a couple of minutes, you know. So are there similar devices or approaches for authors in terms of that balance, or is that not really a thing?
Well, it is certainly a thing, a big part of, like, one of the big phrases that you'll come across as soon as you start to study writing is show, don't tell. And it's, when I've studied drama, it's a big thing as well, you know, show the audience the emotions that the character has experienced, don't tell them. So in doing that, in acting, it's obviously that will come out in the physicality. When it's writing, it is a bit of a mix as well. And I think that the author's sort of depth of experience and understanding and reflection on the world goes a long, long way to creating authenticity in showing and telling an audience about the emotions of a character or the reflections. There's books I've read where it's literally just action, and actually that tends to be a bit of a trope with young adult novels, is that it's just like this character goes from this thing to that thing to the other thing, and we never actually see or feel any emotions attached to those experiences because they're not written in there. Whereas a book that takes the time to go a little bit deeper into showing an action or showing a situation and then allowing the audience to experience the associated emotion and change that a character goes through because of that experience, it just hits a lot deeper. It's much more impactful and meaningful. Yeah, definitely that balance between the thinking about the work, because if you don't come to doing the work without having thoughts about how can I put all this that I've gone through in life into my work and into something that matters to me, like if you're not, I guess, thinking about that a lot, it's not even going to show up in the work. I don't know if that answers the question.
So in songwriting, there's the idea of balancing the internal versus the external. And then you're saying in writing, there's the balance of show, don't tell.
Yeah, but also tell. I think tell without showing is like a death sentence to your book or to your work, because it's just all not really bringing the audience in for the experience. But I think just showing and not telling anything about what's going on internally for those characters or for the reflection on those actions, that to me is, also misses a huge depth.
I was thinking about this disproportionate imbalance. What is it besides the obvious things like time and energy, because we can fritter away time and we can spend our energy elsewhere. So it's not like we don't have either of those things. So what is it? And for me, the three things I identified are expectations, overwhelm, and the process over discovery. So I'll have to...
tell me more.
I'll just leave it at that. Well, to be completely honest, the first one I had down was perfectionism, which has never actually sat right with me when people have said that I'm a perfectionist. And so I was thinking about it, I thought, okay, it's not actually perfectionism that is stopping me from doing something. It's self-imposed expectations.
Expectations,
Yeah.
Okay.
So perfectionism, I think there's times where I definitely am hostage to perfectionism, but I sort of know when they are, and it's occasionally as opposed to the expectations. So I think they're self-imposed expectations, they're imagined expectations. I imagine there's people that have expectations on me that don't. I like that line that someone said, is that we're not even, like when we think we're the main character in someone's story, it's like you're not even a bystander. You're not even like an extra. Like you're not even like in their story.
Not even paid for lines.
You're not even there. They haven't even thought about you. So I think I set the bar so high for myself that fear of failure stops me before I begin.
Yeah.
Setting the bar high isn't a perfectionism thing. It's more just an expectation of what I want to do, when I'm going to do it, how I'm going to do it. There's just way too much sort of planning and thinking going on in my head. Expectations, I think it's like a real killer for me.
Yep.
And like I said before, often they are imaginary.
Yeah.
So that would be the first thing. That's the first block, if you like. The second one is overwhelm. So the sheer scale of a project can be paralyzing.
Yeah, absolutely.
So when the task list is too long, it's easier to get stuck before I even start.
Yep.
To do creative work, you sort of need to understand deep work. And you can do deep work in an hour and a half. That can be enough time to get into doing something deep, but it's not always going to be enough time for you to get to that point of discovering something new or something that's really satisfying and really pushing your work forward. So if you've got 2 hours or 3 hours or 4 hours, if I'm thinking about an album, like what am I going to achieve in 3 or 4 hours? That's the complete wrong way to look at it.
Yep.
But when you're not in a position to be doing the work, that's all the thinking that just builds up and builds up like a massive, starts out as a small snowball at the top of the hill, and by the time it gets to, well, now I can work on it, I've got half a day. It's this massive snowball out of control, taking out a little village at the
Absolutely
in the snowfields. The third one is process over discovery. So getting bogged down by perfecting the process. So that might be where, there is some sort of perfectionism. It sort of comes in the disguise of there's a right way to do something. Or not even that. For me, it might be there's a particular way I want to work. There's a particular way I want to do things. And until I've got it all set up and ready to go in that manner, then I can't do the work, the meaningful pursuit.
And I feel like this would be something that would affect, well, I mean, in our instance, you more than me, because in order for you to do your work, I mean, I'm looking around here sitting in your studio, there is so many pieces of equipment. There's everything relates to one another. Like that's just the recording stuff before you even get onto the instruments and which guitar goes with which amp and then which piece of equipment and plug in and how do you produce. Like there's just so many choices and so many ways. Whereas for me, I just kind of need a laptop and that's about it. It's just the sheer amount of choices that you have in how you work. And if you've got this idea of there's got to be a right way or there's a certain way or there's a ideal way to get this work done, and you've got to sort of develop that, discover that, perfect that, or not even perfect it, but get really good at that certain way before you start. Like I can imagine that would be really quite debilitating to begin the work.
Yeah, it shouldn't be. But
because it's also the joy of it, isn't it? It's making all those choices.
Yeah, exactly. So it's a weird space to be in, and it's probably a space that sports people get inside their head too, where they're doing it for the love of it, but then suddenly they're not loving it anymore, and the joy of actually playing the game is lost for a period of time.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Yeah, it is definitely one of the traps, especially when you know that creativity thrives on exploration and curiosity, which is actually one of the remedies to all of this.
Oh, good. You've got some remedies for us. Yeah. Thank goodness.
It's not all bad news. Well, remedies, the things that have been working for me lately. And,
great.
One of Brad Stulberg's key points is that focusing too much on thinking or perfecting plans can prevent action, which is where real growth and progress happen. Yep. And he advocates for a balance between the two, but stresses that doing is essential for making tangible progress, learning and building momentum. Yeah, momentum is a big thing. You alluded to that earlier. If you get started on something early, it can build momentum into your day.
Yes. And I would say it moves the project forward, but also, I mean, you can't get skilled without just doing it. I know I used to get really wrapped up in certain sentence structures and how I felt like a certain word would sort of pop out a little bit more if I did it in a certain way. And as I've written just huge volumes more, so much more, I don't get sort of hung up on that nearly so much anymore. I take a much further back view of like, how am I conveying messages and meaning through larger chunks of words, because no one else is going to be reading that one sentence in as much depth as I am obsessing over it. So, I think the meaning gets clearer, your skills get sharper just from the volume of action of doing the work.
Yeah, that's true. There's the 10,000 hours, and for writers and songwriters, it's just write every day, work that muscle. Yeah, I mean, you can know all this stuff and then still find it hard to start because of these things that I've sort of realised that are my little traps: self-imposed expectations, overwhelm. They're all real things.
Yeah.
I could have read all the self-help books in the world. I'm still going to feel those things. I still have to deal with them and have a strategy.
And almost on a daily basis.
It's like, how important is the work for me? How important is it for me to do these meaningful pursuits? Because if I can't actually create, is it really that important to me then, you know? The other book I've been reading is Rick Rubin's The Creative Actor Way of Being. So he's a legendary music producer for people that don't know.
Yes, I know you're a big fan of Rick Rubin.
Excuse me. I'm a fan of Rick Rubin among other producers. But yeah, I mean, he's definitely a producer that has worked across so many different genres for so long, has been very successful, and he seems to do it in a way where you don't hear his imprint on the music.
Right.
He talks about creativity as a practice of curiosity, where every moment in the process is an opportunity to learn, explore, and discover something new. And that's more important than the end result. He's very big on not being concerned at all what the end result is going to look like or what anyone thinks of it.
Right.
He's never unwavered from that. That's why people like working with him, because he's literally just about getting the best out of them, regardless of what anyone else thinks. It's just what art can you create in this moment in time that you're going to be happy with. So his approach is deeply philosophical. When I was saying before I can get caught up on the process over, what did I say? Over discovery.
Yeah.
Where he's saying it is a process of discovery.
Right.
Over the final product. So
it's like a really reframing the way you're thinking about it as well.
Yep. Exploring, experimenting, being open to the unknown rather than forcing a specific outcome. It is. It's 100%. It's a mindset. And that's why I like reading what he has to say, because it is a change of mindset. And that's the key, I think. For me, that's been the key.
Yeah. So are you finding with sort of reframing this and what you're learning from these authors and like people in the industry and so on, are you finding that is having a daily impact on you doing the work as opposed to thinking about the work?
Yeah, because, I mean, ultimately I have to find what works for me. And it's just too easy these days to get so much information on how everyone else works. And it can be super unhelpful. All it's doing, even the positive things are just adding to your own internal encyclopedia of how things could be done, should be done, things that you could try. They all actually stop you from doing the work, weirdly.
Yeah.
But frame of mind is a massive one.
Yep.
So the last quote in terms of remedies and how to sort of combat the overwhelm and the ridiculous expectations and invisible imaginary expectations and whatnot is from Austin Kleon, who is, by his own admission, a writer and drawer, doodler. So his books have got all kinds of drawings and things in them, which are pretty funny. But his quote, "It doesn't matter if it's good right now, it just needs to exist," I think is brilliant.
Yeah, that's powerful. Yep.
So that's been a bit of a game changer for me, and it reminds me to prioritize creating over perfection, allowing the creative flow to exist.
I think that is the thing, like it needs to exist. I think when we're thinking about the work, it doesn't, like that is the tension. It's like something that we hold so dear and dream of so much, but it doesn't exist anywhere out there in the world. It's just in the neurons firing in your brain. So to get it existing in any form really is the victory, is like it's done. And like he says, it doesn't matter how good it is or anything. It's just like get it to exist and then you can go from there, I guess.
Yeah, it's just a great way to mobilize for me. It mobilizes me because it's so simple. It's just a simple way to cut through all that self-talk and all that sort of negativity that can be in your mind that can stop you from doing something. It's sometimes not even negativity, it's just other things, just other stuff that you might choose to do with your time or might get distracted with. So, yeah, it doesn't matter if it's good right now, it just needs to exist.
Yep.
In terms of mindset, the other thing that I've changed, and this has been a really simple thing and a really big thing, is I realized that when I woke up in the morning, or when I wake up in the morning, and this has been like for forever, for as long as I can remember being alive, I would wake up and go, right, these are all the things I've got to do today.
Yeah, right.
If there was something big, like if it was something that would cause anxiety, then that was like the thing that was like, whether it be a job interview or a big event or some live performance, or if I've got to go do a gig and it's a venue I've never been to before, it's like that's the thing. It's like, right, I've got to do all this stuff. I've always got a to-do list. I've always got things that I want to achieve. I've always got all my meaningful pursuits that sometimes you don't get to do for weeks.
Yep.
And then you get depressed.
Yep.
So the mindset change that I've done is just saying I get to do this.
Yeah, that's a good one.
It's a massive shift.
Yep.
And it's not easy after you've had decades of doing something and not even realizing that you're doing it or not even thinking there was anything wrong with it. It was just like a way of being thorough, efficient, and making sure you got stuff done.
Yep.
You'd go to bed thinking about your to-do list or whatever, and then you wake up ready to tackle it. But yeah, the way I'd think about it is, I've got to do this, I have to do that, this needs to be done. And as soon as you get up, it's just all this pressure and expectations that I'm putting on myself.
Yeah.
Similar to that quote, it doesn't matter if it's good right now, it just needs to exist, the way that just cuts through.
Yep.
Well, this is one of those simple phrases that changes my mindset in a really big way. So now when I wake up, as soon as I think about things that I've got to do, I go, oh, I get to do this. I get to, and what that then leads me to is having a mindset of gratitude. And when I have a mindset of gratitude, I'll just speak for myself, then that curiosity can actually exist and flow. The curiosity that Rubin talks about is that process of discovery is at the heart of all of creativity and actually doing great work. It's just about being curious and seeing where things go.
Yeah.
So if I get up and I say, I get to do this, I get to make my porridge in the morning and my coffee and then sit outside with it.
Yeah.
And then I get to come in here and I might be doing some admin work for your business, if that's what I'm doing, and I get to do that. I get to have this. It's funny. It's one of these things that you just think it wouldn't be. It doesn't sound profound.
Yeah.
And yet it
so is.
It just is what you need to shift that mindset.
Yep.
Otherwise, you just get caught up in so much.
I like how it's
stuff.
It's a simple way to, rather than going, oh, I must remember to have gratitude and give thanks and be this, that, like I must remember to approach my day in this way or whatever. Like instead of that, to just shift it with that simple changing of words. And we all know I love words and how powerful they are. So instead of I have to do this, I get to do this is just such a huge shift in that reframe. So yeah, I love it.
But they're not even like, the words themselves are like little insignificant words. I think that's what feels nearly wrong about it. Like it shouldn't be that simple, but simple is often
it's the most powerful. Yeah.
Yeah,
and short,
I need simple.
Short, old words are the most powerful words. It's not the big, long, lengthy, newfangled kind of words. It is the words that everybody has a very deep resonance with from many years of use. They're the powerful ones. So yeah, I love it.
Yeah. So
great solution.
Let me just summarize this. Balance could be about learning how to quiet the noise of expectations and overwhelm and just start doing. So embracing that process of discovery, staying curious, remembering that we get to create rather than feeling pressured to do so. Yeah.
Yeah. Nice. Simple takeaways. I like it.
You've been listening to Pain in the Arts. Thanks for listening. And you can support the show on Patreon, patreon.com/Pain in the Arts Life, or you could just search for Pain in the Arts on Patreon. Either way works. Follow the show on your favourite podcast platform or app. And if you want to know more about the show, you can visit our website, www.paininthearts.life. We'll be back next week and Brea will be bringing her topic. Don't tell me what it is.
I certainly won't.
See ya.